Okay, so now that I've got a design for the pivoting rod mechanism, I needed to go and come up with a detailed layout of the sculpture as a whole. And here's what I've come up with. This is a scale drawing. The lattice has a 5-inch separation from one joint to the next. There are 66 rods, 66 hexagons in the lattice, and as you can see here, each of the rods on its shaft vertically is going to be supported with a block on the top and the bottom. And these diagonal lines are the springs that connect one rod to the next. So here's the design I'm thinking of for how to attach each of the rods to the lattice. It's going to be a little block with a hole drilled through it lengthwise and then a hole drilled across it. And the rod is going to insert and it's going to rest on the machine screw, which holds the block onto the lattice. It should give you a pretty free, pretty low resistance bearing there, or support. So this is going to attach to the lattice, and it'll come together like so. So we'll end up with something kind of like this. Shaft going in there from above and shaft coming in from below. So I went through and looked at just how much material I have to produce these slat pieces for the lattice. So I should have just enough with a few extras for mistakes or breakages. Okay, I've got everything cut. 210 long pieces and 40 short pieces. Now it's time to drill some holes. Okay, I've got all the holes drilled on the ends of each of the slats. Now I'm going to go and drill the holes along the center of the long slats. So now that I got the jig clamped down and the drill press table clamped down, everything's locked in place, I'm going to check the alignment by taking a piece, dropping the drill bit down, making a divot, see the divot there, and then flip the piece around and try the same thing, and it should be in the same spot, and it lines up nicely. So that's an indication that where I'm going to be drilling is in the midpoint between the two holes. Well, that looks good to me. So now that I've got all the pieces fabricated in order to build a lattice, I'd like to build a mini lattice for testing in the studio. And then comes the question of how to put the pieces together so that they overlap each other nicely. So I went and I looked at the classic Tri-Axial Weave. As you can see, as you expect with a weave, you have alternating over, under, so that's fine. And this looks really nice if the strips run the whole length from one end of the lattice to the other. But my strips are only 2 units long. So how to overlap them? It occurred to me that for each of these strips, I could have sort of a staircase, like so, always overlapping in the same direction. And that I could alternate that staircase direction for alternating strips. So this one would be a staircase that's ascending, and this one would be one that's descending. Same thing in all 3 of the axes. I went and I drew that up, so you can see on this pattern, along this length of strip, the stairs are going down, along this one the stairs are going up, and on this axis here, stairs are going up, stairs are going down, up, down, up, down, up. It's not quite as frequently repeated, this pattern, as I thought it would be. So you only have hexagons which have this nice cyclical overlap appearing in a spaced out way. It's not every hexagon that has this nice spiral symmetry. So for every hexagon that has this property, I've done a little circular arrow here. So you can see that these intermediate hexagons, the overlapping pattern is not cyclical, it's irregular. So once I got this, I thought, oh, okay, well, let's find the unit that can be used to tile this pattern. And what I found is the green hexagon here. I had a few wrong turns. I was looking at these red hexagons here based on my original intuition with these groups of 3 triangles, as you saw me using with strips of paper earlier. But it turns out that the center, or sort of the basis, is one of these cyclical hexagons. So I went and I drew that up in isolation, and this is the tile that if you replicate it, you'll generate the whole pattern. So I took this tile, and I took this layout for the lattice, and here's what I came up with as the overlapping or the weaving pattern for the mini lattice that I'm going to create in the shop. Okay, I've got the lattice all woven according to the plan. You know, looking at it like this on the bench without any of the intersections joined, I'm a little concerned that it's has a curvature to it. It's kind of doming up. That's not going to be good if I want this thing to stay flat. So I may have to rethink the weave here, but I'll put all the intersections together and see how it looks when it's bolted together. Okay, I've got it all put together, got the nuts tightened on the bolts, and it's flattened out pretty nicely. But looking at it, I'm seeing that the weave with the slats going over, under, it feels like it's under more tension, and that might lead to more imprecision than I would like. The wood, being nice and thin and flexible, can take it easily, but to my eye, it looks like a lot of the intersections may be more relieved if I don't do the overlap for a given fiber, let's say, for a given fiber. So what I mean is take this piece, which right now is in the middle of this 3-layer sandwich, and put it on the bottom. And thus, I think if I find a way to do that systematically throughout the whole sculpture, may lead to a flatter and hopefully a better performing weave. Okay, so I've taken a closer look at the layering, and I think it's going to help to do a sandwich behavior. To look at this slat, for example, in the weave, it's going, as it is currently, from the top to the bottom and then to the middle. Whereas if I change the overlapping in the middle, it's going to go from the top to the middle to the bottom. And that should be the case for everything. Again, going from here, top, middle, bottom, or here, top, middle, bottom. So I think everything is going to kind of find a cleaner path if I redo all these intersections. Okay, I've got the lattice redone, and as you can see here at this shallow angle, it's a lot flatter. Everything looks more relaxed. It rests better on the table. So it results in a little bit of a gap here, but I think that's a fine thing to accept for the benefit of having the whole lattice be much flatter. So I think I like it. I'm going to go with this. To hang the lattice, I've made 4 brackets. They're put together with oak, nice hardwood. Each joint is glued with a dowel through it, and they mount to the wall at 3 points. I want them to be strong enough to support the full sculpture in the customer's building when the time comes. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how it stands on the wall. It's nice and rigid, the lattice is well supported, doesn't wobble from side to side. And wouldn't you know, in the end it matches up pretty well with the drawing too.